Today, which happens to be the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the days of awe and considering your life and your last year's actions and thoughts and words, and also the season of October and fall in the Northern Hemisphere, where we are watching nature go through changes. We are going to contemplate the central mystery of our Christian faith, which is, of course, the mystery of death and resurrection, as taught and demonstrated by Jesus. And in these words of his to those of us who would follow him from Luke chapter 9, if any wish to come after me, let them deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit you if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? And Paul, after Jesus got the message and volunteered that he died daily, and he saw resurrection not as reincarnation, reanimating a corpse, but as a process of ongoing transformation. Metamorphosis was the word he used, change, reintegration. So today we are contemplating losing our lives to save them. And why would we do that? Besides the fact that it is the central mystery of our Christian faith. Psychologists and people of faith in many traditions have noticed that really facing your death while you're alive, dying before you die, as the Sufis say, can extend your capacity to live life more fully and consciously. So I have for us updated the medieval Christian practice that's part of Ars Moriendi, the art of dying well, including Memento, Mori, remember you will die, that was very popular in the late Middle Ages after the bubonic plague had decimated millions of people, including a third of Europe. And death was everywhere. You had to face it. And in our time, thanks to telecommunications, death is everywhere, even if it's not in our immediate experience. But in addition to remembering the death part, as a Christian practice, we're also remembering our resurrection, our transformation. So this is a two-part meditation. In part one, we will remember our death in as graphic a way as we can to have a real experience in imaginary circumstances. And so I've invited you to have a blanket or a sheet ready, and maybe even a place where you can close your eyes and recline. And in part two, we're going to join Lazarus, who is on the record as someone who had a rehearsal of his ultimate death. And we will, with Lazarus in Lazarus' imaginary place, contemplate returning to life, this life we have now, unbound or transformed in some way. So if you're ready, get yourself settled, however you're going to do that. And if you have a blanket or a sheet or something to cover yourself with up to your neck, you can do that now. And follow your breath, breathing in and breathing out, taking in and letting go, which is in itself a form of dying and rebirth, in and out, until you feel like you're in a meditative state. And as you continue to breathe, reflect on these words. Anything in this world that has a birth has a death, and I am no exception. Consider the following. There are so many conditions that lead to death. What am I dying of right now? Physically, emotionally, perhaps, even in my beliefs or thinking. How have I already died in any of these ways? Imagine, recall right now how it feels to recognize you are losing your life. And notice, what is the life that you are losing as seasons change, as events come and go, as the years mount. Reports of people who are resuscitated after a few minutes of not breathing or heartbeat talk about a life review, and this is also classic part of our tradition, where after death or near death, our life passes before our eyes. So allow your life to pass through your life, through your eyes now, your inner eye, focusing your meditation with these questions. How have I loved others? How has my life mattered? What do I regret? Is there unforgiveness in my relationships? What needs to be cleaned up, let go of? What would I change if I could? Jesus's last words are remembered and powerful. Imagine what you might say while you still have the power of speech as you are dying in this rehearsal or in your imagination. And you are now on your deathbed. Imagine the scene. Who is there? How do you feel knowing that your death is imminent? What preparations have you made? What preparations have you not made? What, who are you leaving behind? And now you take your last breath. In your imagination, observe how you die and what happens shortly thereafter in the room. If you have something like a scarf or blanket, cover your face. You are free of your body. What are you aware of? Be with what is around you. Where are you? What is happening? And now, imagine you are Lazarus in the tomb as Jesus approaches. We are told he has just been weeping for you. From John chapter 11. Jesus, greatly disturbed, comes to your tomb. It is a cave, and a stone is lying against it. Jesus says, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister, says, "Lord, already there is a stench because Lazarus, insert your name here, has been dead 4 days." Jesus says, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" What does the glory of God look like? They take away the stone. Jesus looks up and says, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you have sent me." And when he says this, he cries with a loud voice to you, "Lazarus, come out." You come out, your hands and feet still bound and your face covered. Jesus says, "Unbind yourself and let yourself go." Feel what your bindings are. What can you leave behind in your tomb? Feel them drop away as you let them go and step out of the grave. What is the life you gain? Remain in contemplation for a few more moments until you are ready to return to the room. Allow yourself a few more breaths if you need them. And I'll start the sharing, which I invite you to share if you have any. When I agreed to lead this Memento Mori practice months ago, because we have a good leader who plans ahead. Thank you, Matt. I knew that I would be a widow come October 3rd. And it's now just a month and a day since I sat pretty close to where I'm sitting now as my husband took his last breath. Here are his ashes. Practice of Memento Mori is really being real about the fact that our days are numbered and we should live them the best we can. Thomas's death was not a surprise, and we benefited by having our faith and our practice. And all of that has allowed me to bear witness to the events, stay present, stay conscious, weep, and rejoice. I have no doubt that he stepped through a threshold and is in a greater, unlimited place. So I find this practice valuable, and I hope that you will too. Does anyone else want to share?
Thank you for leading us through the practice. I was curious. I did work 14 years in hospice as a bereavement coordinator. I have seen much. I'm not afraid of death. I can tell that you have great faith. I am posed on a threshold. I have been working for 3.5 years to complete retirement and move back home to Maine and work on a 1/4 time church job. I think they're cleaning the house today. I expect the closing next week and hope to move into my own building on the 16th of October. So it has been an interesting 2 years of saying, what am I bringing with me into retirement? And what am I leaving home in Connecticut, which is not home anymore? And to know the freedom that there are great choices. I mean, it's very obvious when you move 200 miles and everything's packed in storage, but I think we have these choices often if we really want them. Where do I spend my time? What do I read? What's my mind going? What do I live stream? And who do I choose to hang out with? So it was a good experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much for leading us through that practice. um, some of you may know that, when my mother gave birth to me, she had a near-death experience and she died for a couple of minutes. And so when I was growing up, that's what I associated with death. My mother would tell me the story of when I was being born, and she couldn't tell it without weeping, not because of sadness, but because she was in the presence of just that unconditional love that there was nothing she could do about it. And so I didn't come to associate death with fear, but with this just peace that was beyond my understanding. So thank you for taking me back to that place, Gabrielle, of thinking of death, not in a fearful way, but remembering that the love of God and Christ is there with us throughout it all.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. I worked for over 15 years as an intensive care nurse and had many experiences of being with family members and with patients at the time of their deaths. And then more recently, when my father was dying, as we gathered around his bed, and one small tear slid from his eye down his cheek. And I was just so struck by that timing of his leaving. And I wrote a poem, and I remember one of the lines about the tears that well within our eyes, cause scenes to blur, become obscure. And yet the tear I see on you as you lay dying reveals to me eternity.
Mm.
And I try to bring that into my encounters now with parishioners and people and friends and family, that it is a transition, and that what comes is a sense of the peace and the promise. So thank you for bringing me into this experience.
I appreciate being able to do this experience over again. I've had a chance to do it with Gabrielle a couple of other times, and each time it's different, and this time very powerful. And I really sensed my great-grandchildren around me. I'd been trying to decide whether I should spend my energy working on things here at home or go to be with my great-granddaughter for her bat mitzvah. And it's been becoming clear to me that that's the important thing. That's the being with the family and being with the love and passing that love on, and just holding my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren in love is the important thing in life. So that was very much reaffirmed this time in my experience of this. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to acknowledge Orly for helping me improve this. As she mentioned, I've led it several times as part of it's part of a online class I've taught called the it has different names, but it's essentially looking at Jesus's life as a series of initiations or steps of our own spiritual growth: incarnation, baptism, transfiguration, crucifixion, resurrection, ascension. And I generally do those around Advent. And if there's interest, if I do it again this year, I'll share the link with this group. It's a much more in-depth with pictures and slides, exploration into this great mystery of our faith, death and rebirth or transfiguration, which more and more is lighting up for me as what Jesus was trying to get into our thick heads as the gospel.
One other important learning for me in this process, my husband passed away 2 months ago, and I just read David White's, I'm reading in it, Consolations, and his pages on friendship are so moving. And one of the things that he said is that friendship can continue to be developed and matured even after a death, that one of the people might be gone, but that you can continue to deepen and develop your relationship. And that was a new idea to me. And that's been very meaningful as I take that as a guide for me, and have created an altar to that experience and intention of continuing to deepen and mature my relationship with my husband, even though he's no longer on the physical plane.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I'm going to stop the recording now.